Hey everyone, here, Pete Matisiewicz from Pete's S10 page. We all saw the Donut Media video last week on the history of the S10. I think they called it Everything You Need to Know About the S10. At the time last week, I was out of town, so I did a quick review of it. What I want to do now is I'm going to do a real-time commentary where we're going to sit here and watch the video, and I'm going to pause it at times just to give some clarifications or corrections, and thought you might enjoy seeing it that way.
It was America's titular tiny trucks that tackled trails and towed teeny trailers. The do-it-all pickup that was all work and all play. Commuting, hauling, bed bouncing, and off-roading. This is everything you need to know to get up to speed. The Chevy S10.
Well, first of all, the introduction here, completely unnecessary and kind of belabored. I don't know why they chose to do such an annoying intro if you're trying to get viewers, but they have a lot more followers than I do. So.
The story of the S10 starts decades before it even existed. In the 1960s, Japanese automakers were making their tiny cars and slowly carving out a niche for themselves in the US market. Meanwhile, the big three were sailing on cruise control, selling millions of thirsty pony cars, big sedans, and full-size trucks. Why bother looking in the rearview mirror? Everyone else was behind them. But by the early 70s, domestic automakers were caught asleep at the wheel. Toyota and Datsun had been quietly selling a lot of compact trucks to American customers, particularly young buyers in California. The JD OEMs had found a totally new market, and the big three didn't have anything to compete with them. Luckily, GM had just bought a 34% stake in Isuzu in 1971. This was nothing a little badge engineering couldn't fix, right? Just take an existing Isuzu and call it a Chevy. In a bit of a rush, Chevy execs called up their new friends at Isuzu and asked them to start sending over the wee little pickup trucks they only sold in Japan. That would get GM.
Okay, first break here, talking about the Chevy Love truck, and first of all, they're showing a much later model than what first came to the United States. The Isuzu Love was actually based on a car. They took the Isuzu Florian, which was a little car sold in Japan. It was a body-on-frame car, notched it off right behind the B-pillar, and put a truck bed on it. So if you check it out, the Isuzu Florian is a little four-door car that was sold in Japan that looks like a Love truck, except it's a little sedan. It'd be kind of cool to make a crew cab project out of.
That would get GM into the compact truck market as quickly and economically as possible. In 1972, GM started selling the Isuzu Faster as the new Chevrolet Love. They didn't call it the Love because it was adorable like me, James Love Pumphrey, even though it totally was. No, they called it the Love because LOVE is the acronym for Light Utility Vehicle, LUV. No need to make things complicated, am I right? If you only wanted to haul fairy dust instead of hay bales, get yourself a Love. Not long after that, as we know, the oil crisis came along. Gas prices were up and nobody wanted giant gas guzzlers anymore because it was too expensive to drive anywhere, which is still, to this day, the #1 thing people do with cars. Drive them. Domestic manufacturers realized that big cars were on their way out. Selling the Love for the rest of the 70s bought GM some time to develop their own compact pickup truck. It took them a while.
Well, first of all, this is speculation on when they started developing the S10, because honestly, we don't know. And I have a hunch they didn't really plan on doing the S10 probably until the very late 70s, at least until the introduction of the G-body, because the S10 uses the same front suspension and steering components as a G-body. And I think in a rush they just used the Isuzu engine there for the first year. Granted, the 2.8 was coming out in some other GM models, and they had that. They didn't have a small four-cylinder ready, and so they just grabbed the Isuzu four-cylinder, the 1.9, that you could have gotten in the Love truck, and threw it in there. So I don't think it took years and years of development, as he's implying, but then again, it's just speculation.
But in the all-important battle of Chevy versus Ford, they still beat Ford to the market with their own American-made small truck, the all-new 1982 Chevy S10. And also, it's totally confusing named brother/sister, the GMC S15, the second coolest S15 ever made. The new truck was a simple design with clean, classic lines. It was just a tad bigger than the Love, but still significantly smaller than the full-size Chevy C10.
First of all, good time to pause here. I do want to give Donut Media some credit. Apparently they found my YouTube page, because if you look at the video up in the corner, they're giving me some attributions, and a lot of these Gen 1 videos have my name on them, which is kind of cool.
It was modest enough to easily park while running errands around town, but it also had that handy truck bed in the back for trips to the local hardware store or to help your buddies move if you're one of those suckers who couldn't tell your friends, you know what? We don't get dinner together, man. I'm not gonna help you move your couch. The S10 was good on gas and just plain cheap to buy. It wasn't long before they were flying off the dealer lots. In their first year, S10s were offered in just one two-wheel drive body style, and it was powered by either an 80 horsepower four-cylinder or 110 horsepower V6. They quickly added an extended cab model and InstaTrack four-wheel drive in '83, followed by a four-cylinder diesel option in '84, four-wheel drive and diesel. Now that's a truck.
Okay, time for several clarifications at once. First of all, the diesel was never available in four-wheel drive. The diesel was 1984 and 1985. It was available in two-wheel drive only. And I'll tell you what, the reason why they're so rare is for very good reason. They had 62 horsepower at 4,400 RPMs on a diesel, which is insane. It was a terrible engine, for the application anyway. It was not a powerhouse. It was not a cheap option. The 2.8 had a lot more power for about the same amount of money. Another clarification you want to make, they did a separate video for the Blazer and Jimmy already, so they're not really including those here. But the Blazer and Jimmy also came out in 1983 when the extended cab and the four-wheel drives were introduced. Also, as I already mentioned, the base engine in 1982 is a 1.9-liter Isuzu engine. Starting in 1983, they came out with a 2-liter engine, which was a GM engine. I believe it was the Model 122, or the architecture of it was called. Don't quote me on that. But anyway, that architecture engine actually shared a lot of components with the 2.8. It was kind of an early-style modular engine. And that engine went through several generations and eventually became the 2.2 engine that we get in 1994 on the Gen 2 pickup. So that original 2-liter, which was an option initially, and then became the standard engine, except in California where the 1.9 remained standard and available in some applications. But anyway, the original engine, the 1.9, was an Isuzu engine. Then there was the 2-liter engine that came out in 1983. Which was a genuine GM engine, shared some common heritage with the 2.8. Just thought that'd be something to throw
Eventually,
in.
Pontiac's 2.5-liter Iron Duke 4-banger replaced the smaller engines, while the V6 got a few more ponies. But
Okay, something else I want to add here. The 2.5 came out in 1985. In 1985, you could get the 1.9. In 1986, the Iron Duke was the only 4-cylinder.
But as John Connor pointed out to the Terminator, he could probably run faster than an S10. In 1988, the 4.3-liter Vortec V6 showed up and gave the S10 a much-needed boost to 160 horsepower. That was a lot at the time. It's a very exciting engine. Don't be a V8 guy or a V6 guy. Be a motor guy. In 1989, a V6 that was super reliable and powerful was cool. On top of the options like a short or long bed, a sunroof, and a fancy digital dash, GM offered a bunch of different appearance packages.
Okay, first of all, I want to make note of a couple things they showed there. The digital dashboard came out in 1989. The sunroof, which was factory installed, even though it was basically an aftermarket sunroof that they installed at the factory, it was still factory installed. That came out in 1988.
There was the rugged-looking backcountry edition. Hey guys, what's a tough look for our truck? How about the backcountry edition? Backcountry edition? Yeah, that sounds tough as hell. Yeah, I agree. It sounds tough as hell. Yeah, I think it sounds tough as hell as well. Yeah, I agree. Well, that does it. Backcountry edition sounds tough as hell. And then it went to market and everyone was like, that sounds like a bunch of cowboys f***ing each other. The body...
Well, first of all, the backcountry, which is what they were showing there, that was came out mid-1987. It's not in any of the brochures or materials, but it was available starting in mid-1987 via a dealer memo that came out that they could order them. There was an order form and a highlight form, which I have somewhere. I don't know if I have it scanned or not. I did post something up on the S10 page the other day about it.
Body kitted Top Gun and Cameo editions and the awesome four-wheel drive.
Okay, first of all, let's take note. They showed Woody's cameos there, which is kind of cool. Woody from Hardcore S10. The Top Gun package, you're not going to convince me without showing me some sort of documentation that the Top Guns are a factory package. I think they went through a third-party converter, something that you would have ordered through your dealer, and it would have arrived at the dealer with the package on, but it didn't leave the factory that way. It went to a third-party upfitter that the dealer ordered it through.
Wheel drive Baja edition, available only in white, red, or black with some major red decals. The Baja wasn't all show, it was also muy go. It had real, functional 4x4 stuff like a roll bar.
First of all, the roll bar was not functional. It even had a sticker on it that basically said it was not for occupant protection. It was there just to look cool and to hold the lights up above the cab. So that wasn't functional.
A front brush guard with off-road lights, a tubular rear bumper, underbody skid plates, and a sweet off-road suspension setup.
Okay, now the off-road suspension and the skid plates that he's referring to were not standard on an S10, but they were optional. There was really nothing functional on a Baja that you couldn't have ordered on any four-wheel drive S10. They looked awesome and everything, but functionally, they were no different than a well-equipped four-wheel drive truck.
This was so cool, it lasted almost 10 years, until 1991 when GM gave their mini truck twins a minor refresh. With new grills, side moldings, and they changed the GMC's name to...
Okay, first of all, in 1991, they did give it a refresh, and in my opinion, the 91, the 93 are the best looking trucks, but the specimens they show in the video, I think, are really poor, because they're both repainted, and both of them have some flaws in their paint jobs in terms of being factory correct. And then if you look at this Sonoma rear bumper here, that is a hideous aftermarket rear bumper. That truck likely either had its bumper replaced or it was never ordered with one in the first place.
Name to the GMC Sonoma. Now I know this is the Chevy S10 video, but you can't talk about the S10 without mentioning the GMC Cyclone. For some reason, GM didn't see fit to combine the Chevy badge with the turbo. Probably because they didn't want anything else on Chevy dealer lots that was as fast as a Corvette.
Okay, this here is the stuff of folklore and legend and stuff, and honestly, it's cool stuff to talk about. And the guys at Sport Machines I know can talk about it a lot better than I can, but coming from a Chevy background, I'll give you my perspective on it, because I grew up in a Chevy dealer. My uncle owned a small Chevrolet dealer. And a couple things here I want to dispel. First of all, the whole nothing can be faster than a Corvette thing, that's just folklore. I don't think I'm going to change anyone's mind on it, but I don't think that had anything to do with the reason why Chevrolet didn't get the Cyclone. I think the reason that Chevrolet didn't get the Cyclone was because around 1990, and even some in 89, there was some documentation from GMC to their dealers basically saying, hey, we want to be our own brand. We don't want to be a rebadged Chevrolet anymore. All they're doing is selling pickups that are Chevy pickups with different grills on them. Because in the 1980s, they were identical, same price, same standard options. They were ordered out of the same dealer ordering materials. The only difference was sometimes Chevrolet got some cool packages like the Baja and the Cameo, and the GMC didn't, or the Sunshine striping, which GMC didn't get. GMC wanted to come out and be their own brand, and I think the Cyclone was the vehicle to get there. And I think that General Motors let GMC have the Cyclone because GMC really wanted to establish a new brand identity and not just be a rebadged Chevrolet anymore. My uncle told me the story about the dealer meeting back in 1990 when it was announced that the GMC Cyclone was coming out and what it was all about. And when the Chevrolet dealers found out they weren't getting one, they had a fit. I mean, there was like a mutiny that the Chevrolet dealers weren't going to be getting the Cyclone, that GMC got it. Because up to that point, the GMC existed for no other purpose than so Pontiac dealers could sell a pickup truck. Really, GMC's only purpose up to that point was to let dealers who didn't sell Chevrolets have a pickup truck to sell their customers. Because, you know, Bob might drive a nice Cadillac, but he owns a dry cleaning business and needs 10 vans. He'd like to help out his Pontiac salesman. This basically gave the Pontiac, Buick, Oldsmobile, Cadillac dealers a truck they could sell without having to say, go down to our competitors at the Chevrolet dealer. Basically, that's all GMC was up until that point. They had no personality. Back to the video.
So, that same year, they launched the fastest stock pickup truck in the world at the time, the Cyclone. It had low compression pistons in the Vortec V6 and an intercooled turbo. These all-wheel drive little black beauties made 280 God blessed horsepower. Thank you, Jesus. But what's more impressive is they went from 0 to 60 in 4.3 seconds. To put that into perspective, the Lamborghini Urus goes from 0 to 60 in 2.9 in 2018. 28 years later, for a gajillion dollars more. It's a truck that cost no money in 1990 that went 0 to 60 in 4 point whatever. This
Okay, first of all, he says it cost no money. Well, in 1991, if you look inside the GMC product guide that was given to dealers, you will see that the base price of a Sonoma is $8,057. Okay, the Cyclone costs no money. The Cyclone costs $26,995. So you were talking about $18,000 above a base truck. I wouldn't call that no money. You were close to Corvette money back in 1991 for that.
This fast and very special. It was so cool that Car and Driver put it up against a Ferrari 348 in a drag race, and the Cyclone won! Hell yeah, America. Now, you could haul your horse food faster than the horse, but you could only haul 500 pounds of horse food because GM gave the Cyclone a much lower payload rating than the standard S10 and Sonoma. The GMC brand was intended to be the sportier side of Chevy.
Okay, again, I want to say GMC was not intended to be the sportier side of Chevrolet. It was intended to be the truck that the Pontiac or Buick or Cadillac dealers could sell.
So, the Cyclone also had a dropped ride height, low profile tires, and came with a warning label on the sun visor not to take it off-road. It was built for urban cowboys and was never meant to be practical. Enthusiasts loved it, but the quick compact truck category didn't really catch on. Fewer than 3,000 were sold, and today the Cyclone is a cult classic. If you didn't have the bread for the top-of-the-line Cyclone, you could still get a slice of the action with a two-wheel drive, naturally aspirated, nothing to sneeze at, 195 horsepower Sonoma GT, but they only sold 860.
Okay, now Sonoma GT was cool. A couple cool things I want to make note about that. 1992 was the year that the 4.3 with the multi-port fuel injection came out, or the central fuel injection that year. And the Sonoma GT was the first one to get it. It wasn't available till late in the model year on pickup trucks and Blazers, but the Sonoma GTs all got it. Now everybody wants to know, why was the GT so rare? They only made 806 of them. Well, again, going back to 1992, we are talking about $8,790 was the base price of a Sonoma. And the Sonoma GT was still $16,300. So it was double the price of a base model. Now, granted, it was well equipped, but you could get a 4.3 automatic truck with some nice trimmings for significantly less than that. And I think the fact that you weren't getting the Cyclone performance, you were still paying a premium for the Sonoma GT.
That's whack. On top of being a popular choice in its niche market, the S10 was also the perfect platform for a newer offshoot of lowrider culture, mini trucking. I mean, what else would you call it? From traditional tiny spoke wheels and hydraulic suspensions to dancing truck beds, wild paint graphics, and meta religious airbrush tailgate murals, car enthusiasts had a new outlet to display their creativity. Lowrider culture and mini truck culture deserve multiple episodes, and we'll spend much more time on them in the future. Stay tuned. Smash that sub button and the bell to keep up to date on donut. Anyway, well, the 80s and early 90s came and went, and after 12 long years, the second generation S10 and Sonoma finally debuted in 1994. The updated truck was a bit bigger and had more rounded edges, but it had more powerful engines and a more comfortable interior.
Okay, brief pause here. 1994 came out, new truck. Bear in mind, this was not a full ground-up rebuild. This was just basically a restyling. They restyled the body, new bed, new sheet metal, some new amenities, but the truck wasn't actually any bigger like he's saying. We're talking about a truck that sits on the same frame. They have the same wheelbase, the same overall length, same general dimensions. And while, modern design allowed for maybe a little more elbow room inside the interior, the truck itself actually wasn't any bigger.
They brought out a step-side model. The extended cab got a third door for easier access, and in 2001, a 5-passenger, 4-door crew cab became available. All the special editions from the 80s disappeared like Ali Sheedy and were replaced with new options. There was the
ZR2
package for off-roaders, and there was an all-new trim level that they made up brand new called the SS.
Okay, first of all, the SS was not a trim level. It was an LS trim truck. The SS was a preferred option group, which basically, when you're ordering the truck, you check off this preferred option group, and it includes a bunch of options. And then depending on the preferred option group, you may or may not be allowed to have other options. Well, basically, if you ordered an SS truck, the preferred option group was the only group of options you got. There was very little you could get to deviate from what came with that. And the reason it really never took off was the fact that there was such little flexibility with what you could order with it, and the fact that you could order that identical truck minus the badges, often for less money. And I know the dealership I worked at, my boss never wanted to order them because he felt like you were getting cheated by getting the SS because you were paying a premium, but having no flexibility in what you could get with the truck. And I think that's the reason you don't see a whole lot of.
It was high performance. It didn't work out, so they replaced it with the...
First of all, it really wasn't high performance. It had the normal L35 engine, 195 horsepower. I mean, yeah, snappy for a stock truck of the 90s, but not high performance in comparison.
Extreme models.
Okay, and second of all, the Extreme did not replace the SS. The SS was discontinued. The dealers knew that was coming. The Extreme, I guess chronologically replaced it, but I don't think we were going after the same demographic. The Extreme was more for appearance, where the SS was geared more toward the guy that wanted the performance truck, even though it wasn't a performance truck. The Extreme was very affordable. A young buyer could afford to purchase one, especially when you could get it with a 4-cylinder and a 5-speed, and it didn't have to be all optioned up like an SS would be. I think the Extreme had a totally different buyer in mind from GM, and I think while they may have gotten rid of the SS for the Extreme, I would be hesitant to say that the Extreme replaced the SS.
Model. It wasn't nearly as extreme as the turbocharged Cyclone, but it still had a lowered sports suspension and 16-inch alloy wheels. You might be surprised to hear this, but there's one version of the S10 that's actually one of Chevy's rarest models.
And you shouldn't be surprised, because if you've followed any S10 pages for any length of time, you should know that these already exist.
So just after GM launched the EV1 electric car in 1996, they popped a detuned version of its electric drivetrain into 492 short box regular cab S10s. The 1997 S10 EV was front-wheel drive and had lead-acid batteries good for up to an astonishing 45 miles. In 98, the batteries were upgraded, which saved a few pounds.
Why was it front-wheel drive? Well, I think it just went with the design, but basically they used a four-wheel drive platform with a dead axle in the back. And if you look at this picture here, the freeze frame, you can see there's no pumpkin there. It's just a dead axle. And basically, you see the four-wheel drive offset wheels, basically because the electric motors up front could turn it just like they did on the EV1.
Pounds and bumped its range up to 75 miles. Like the EV1, all the S10 EVs were originally leased out for fleet use. But unlike the EV1, not all of the trucks were recalled or crushed. At the end of the original lease term, 60 of the S10 EVs were spared from the jaws of the junkyard and were sold to the fleet owner. Keep your eyes peeled for one of these super rare Chevys parked next to an electric outlet. As Y2K came and went, the S10 sales slowed. Gas wasn't that expensive, and new engine technology meant big trucks were getting good at sipping the juice instead of guzzling it. The auto industry was changing, and if something new wasn't bigger, then it wasn't better. In 2004, GM stopped production of the Chevy S10 and GMC Sonoma compact truck.
But remember, it was the S-Series was produced through 2005 at the Linden, New Jersey plant, where they still made Blazers through 2005.
Compact trucks for the American market. They were replaced by mid-sized twins, the Colorado and the Canyon. Today you might see an S.
Okay, now the Colorado and the Canyon, yes, they did replace it. Yes, they were bigger. I would be hesitant to call them mid-sizes. They weren't as big as, say, a Dakota. But, you know, having worked at a Chevrolet dealer during this era, I think it's important to know that, you know, we were being told, yes, you know, the new S10 is coming out. The new S10 is coming out. They're redesigning the S10. They're redesigning the S10. It wasn't until pretty late in the development phase that they decided, hey, we're not going to call it the S10. Because at this point, you know, back, you know, in what, 96, 97, they renamed the G-Van the Express Van, and they renamed the CK truck in 99 to the Silverado. They were getting rid of all those old alphanumeric designations and giving their trucks these new sexier names because, you know, I think the marketplace really liked these, you know, sexier names that everybody had for everything. And I think the S10 really followed that old alphanumeric designation. They had this all brand new truck. I think to them it was the perfect time to rebrand it for the North American market and call it the Colorado or the Canyon. Because in other countries where the Colorado and Canyon were built or exported, they still carried the name S10. They carried that, you know, name S10 for years. The name S10 is still used in other markets. But I think S10 became synonymous, you know, with the average American buyer as being, oh, that's that inexpensive truck that Chevrolet sells, that cheap truck that Chevrolet sells. I think by calling it the Colorado and the Canyon, by changing the name, they were creating a more upscale product. And what better time to do it than when you're totally redesigning it from the ground up. I don't think that's the reason that S10 enthusiasts don't particularly like the Colorado. I think the reason we don't like the Colorado is because it doesn't share the basic platform that the S10 shared for 20 plus years. You know, I think that's really the problem. I don't think we hate the name. I don't think we hate the style. I think it's just a different platform than what we were accustomed to.
See an S10 lifted on big tars grappling with sand, mud, rocks. You might see one sitting flat on the ground with its wheels tucked under its fenders. A custom lowrider on airbag suspension. And you might see one with an LSV8 roasting rubber at the drag strip or on a drift night. You can't buy a new Chevy S10 in the US anymore. But the S10 love is alive and well. Thanks for watching Up to Speed. If you aren't subscribed to Donut, how did you even see this video? Hit that button down there and hit the bell so you get an email or a text.
I'll tell you how we found your video because it was shared 10,000 times in S10 groups within 24 hours.
And want to buy a shirt, go to shop.donut.media. We have other videos that you might like. I love you.
Okay, and that's that. First of all, I do want to thank Donut Media for doing the video. I think it was helpful. I think for your average newbie, I think there's a lot of information there that can be used for good. Now, those of us who are like super enthusiasts are going to find little things that we wish they would have expounded upon or clarified, and a few details that just flat out weren't correct. But I think overall, I think for the good of the hobby, I think it was a good video. I'm glad they made it. I want to thank Donut Media for that. I want to thank Donut Media for using some of the videos I have on my YouTube channel. So, as always, I always love giving you more information. Maybe sometime soon I will do a commentary on their S10 Blazer video. Be sure to check out my YouTube channel, Pete Matasiewicz. Also check out Pete's S10 page on Facebook. I'm on Instagram as well. I'm on Twitter, but honestly I never use it. Facebook is really where I seem to do the most work, and then I try to put stuff on YouTube whenever I have a good video. So hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was worth the time. I hope it was worth watching again, just so you could get those clarifications. If you ever have any questions or anything, please make sure to send me a message. Thanks a lot. Bye.